I never thought I'd find myself here, 30 years old and questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. But that's what Santa Ana does to you, I guess. It's a city that loves to throw curveballs, especially on warm summer nights like this one. I'm Clara Thompson, PR manager extraordinaire by day, and, well, I'm not sure what by night anymore. My love life's been as dry as the California drought, and I'm starting to wonder if it's not just bad luck but something else entirely. Tonight, I decided to ditch my usual Netflix and wine routine for an outdoor cinema screening. As I spread out my blanket on the grass, I couldn't help but notice the woman next to me. She had this wild mane of black hair that caught the light from the screen, making it shimmer like a damn constellation. "Mind if I scoot a bit closer?" she asked, flashing a smile that made my stomach do a little flip. These summer nights can get chilly. I nodded, probably a bit too eagerly. Sure, plenty of room. As she settled in next to me, I caught a whiff of her perfume, something citrusy and intoxicating. "I'm Allison," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, confident. "Allison Chen." "Clara Thompson," I replied, hoping the darkness hid the blush I felt creeping up my cheeks. What the hell was wrong with me? As the movie started, I tried to focus on the screen, but I kept finding my gaze drifting to Allison. The way she laughed, the curve of her neck, the slight wrinkle in her nose when she concentrated, it was all oddly mesmerizing. Halfway through the film, we both reached for the popcorn at the same time. Our hands brushed, and I swear I felt a jolt of electricity run through me. I jerked my hand back, knocking the bucket over and spilling kernels everywhere. "Shit, I'm so sorry," I stammered, scrambling to clean up the mess. Allison just laughed, a rich, throaty sound that made my pulse quicken. "No worries," she said, helping me gather the spilled popcorn. "Gives us something to do besides watch this terrible movie." I chuckled, relieved she wasn't annoyed. God, it is awful, isn't it? I thought it was just me. We spent the rest of the movie whispering snarky comments to each other, our heads bent close together. I found myself hyper-aware of every time our shoulders touched, every shared laugh, every conspiratorial glance. As the credits rolled, I felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. I didn't want the night to end, which was ridiculous. I'd just met this woman. "Well, Clara," Allison said, standing and stretching in a way that made my mouth go dry. "This was surprisingly fun for such a terrible movie." "Yeah," I managed to say, gathering my things. "It was. Nice." Allison hesitated for a moment, then pulled out her phone. "Listen, I know this might be forward, but would you like to grab coffee sometime? You seem like someone I'd like to know better." I froze, my mind racing. Was this a friendly invitation or something more? And why did the idea of it being something more not freak me out as much as it should? "I'd love to," I heard myself say before I could overthink it. As I walked home that night, my head was spinning. I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in my world, and for the first time in a long while, I was excited to see where it might lead. The universe, it seems, has a twisted sense of humor. Just when I thought I had my life figured out, it throws me a curveball that makes me question everything I thought I knew about myself. And it all started with a chance encounter at an outdoor cinema. I couldn't get Allison out of my head. Her laugh, her scent, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, it was all burned into my memory. We'd texted a bit since that night, but our coffee date kept getting postponed due to our hectic schedules. I told myself it was just a new friendship, nothing more, but deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. Then came the day of the big project reveal at work. I strode into the conference room, confidence oozing from every pore, ready to wow the executives with my PR strategy. And there she was. Allison Chen, looking like a goddamn vision in a crisp white shirt and tailored blazer. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world stood still. Then reality came crashing back as our CEO started the introductions. "Clara, meet Allison Chen, our new brand manager. She'll be working closely with you on this project." Allison's lips curved into a small smile. "We've met, actually. Nice to see you again, Clara." I managed to stammer out a greeting, my mind reeling. How the hell was I supposed to focus on work when she was sitting right across from me, looking like that? The meeting was a blur. I presented my ideas on autopilot, hyper-aware of Allison's gaze on me. When it was her turn to present, I was mesmerized. She spoke with such passion and conviction about brand identity and market positioning that I found myself hanging on her every word. As the days turned into weeks, Allison and I fell into a rhythm. Late nights at the office became the norm as we worked to refine our strategy. We'd order takeout, spread papers across the conference room table, and bounce ideas off each other until the sun came up. One night, as we were brainstorming over cold Chinese food, Allison suddenly laughed. "What's so funny?" I asked, looking up from my notes. She shook her head, still chuckling. "Nothing, it's just, I never thought I'd enjoy working on a project this much. You make it fun, Clara." I felt a warmth spread through my chest at her words. "You're not so bad yourself, Chen." Our eyes met, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her gaze. Something that made my heart race and my palms sweat. But before I could process it, she looked away, clearing her throat. "We should, probably call it a night," she said, gathering her things. I nodded, trying to ignore the disappointment that washed over me. "Yeah, you're right. Early meeting tomorrow." As we walked to the parking lot, our hands brushed accidentally. The jolt I felt was undeniable this time. I pulled away quickly, mumbling an apology. Allison gave me a long look, her expression unreadable. "Good night, Clara," she said softly before getting into her car. I watched her drive away, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and desire. What the hell was happening to me? I'd never felt this way about a woman before. Hell, I'd never felt this way about anyone before. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about Allison. The way her eyes lit up when she got excited about an idea, the adorable furrow between her brows when she concentrated, the gentle curve of her neck as she leaned over her laptop. I groaned, burying my face in my pillow. This was more than just admiration for a colleague, more than just a new friendship. I was falling for Allison Chen, and I had no idea what to do about it. As sleep finally claimed me, one thought echoed through my mind. How the hell was I going to face her at tomorrow's team-building exercise? I woke up with a pounding headache and a sense of dread. The team-building exercise, Allison, my newfound feelings. Christ, what a mess. As I got ready, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My blonde hair was a disaster, and there were dark circles under my blue eyes. I looked like I'd been through a war. In a way, I suppose I had a war with myself. The drive to the company retreat felt like a journey to the gallows. I kept rehearsing what I'd say to Allison, how I'd act normal, professional, but every scenario in my head ended with me making a fool of myself. When I arrived, Allison was already there, looking unfairly gorgeous in yoga pants and a tank top. She waved, and I felt my stomach do a somersault. "Morning, Clara," she said, handing me a coffee. "You look like you could use this." Our fingers brushed as I took the cup, and I nearly dropped it. "Thanks," I mumbled, taking a large gulp to hide my nervousness. The day was a blur of trust falls, problem-solving exercises, and team lunches. I tried to focus, to be present, but my gaze kept drifting to Allison. The way she moved, the sound of her laugh, the little crinkle in her nose when she concentrated, it was all I could think about. Then came the final exercise. We were paired up and told to guide our blindfolded partner through an obstacle course. Of course, the universe being the cruel mistress she is, I was paired with Allison. "Don't worry," she said as she tied the blindfold around my eyes. "I won't let you fall." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. As she guided me through the course, her hands on my waist, her voice in my ear, I felt like I was going to combust. Every touch, every whispered direction felt charged with electricity. When it was my turn to guide her, I was hyper-aware of every point of contact between us. As we neared the end of the course, I miscalculated, and Allison stumbled. I caught her, pulling her close to steady her. For a moment we stood there, bodies pressed together, my arms around her waist, her face inches from mine. I could feel her breath on my lips, could smell that intoxicating citrus scent of her perfume. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. All I had to do was lean in a little, and... "Time's up," our team leader called out. "Great job, everyone." We sprang apart like we'd been shocked. Allison pulled off her blindfold, her cheeks flushed. "Thanks for the save," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I mumbled something incoherent and practically fled to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to get a grip. What the hell was I doing? I'd never been attracted to a woman before. I wasn't gay. Was I? That night, I called my best friend Sarah. We'd known each other since college. And if anyone could help me make sense of this, it was her. Whoa, slow down, Sarah said after I'd word vomited the whole situation to her. Let me get this straight. You're falling for a woman? I groaned. I don't know. Maybe. I can't stop thinking about her, Sarah. When I'm around her, it's like I can't breathe, but in a good way. Is that crazy? Sarah was quiet for a moment. It's not crazy, Clara. It's love, or at least a pretty serious crush. But I'm not gay, I protested weakly. Maybe you're bi, or maybe you're straight but Allison sexual. Labels don't matter, hon. What matters is how you feel. I flopped back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. I'm scared, Sarah. What if I'm reading this all wrong? What if she doesn't feel the same way? What if this ruins our working relationship? What if it doesn't? Sarah countered. What if this is the start of something amazing? You'll never know unless you take a chance. After we hung up, I lay there for hours, turning Sarah's words over in my mind. Take a chance. The thought was terrifying, but exhilarating too. As I drifted off to sleep, I made a decision. I was going to talk to Allison. I was going to be honest about my feelings, consequences be damned. Little did I know, fate had other plans that would test not just my newfound feelings for Allison, but our very careers and reputations. The next morning, I walked into the office with a mix of determination and terror. I was going to find Allison, pull her aside, and lay it all out. But as soon as I stepped off the elevator, I knew something was wrong. There was a palpable tension in the air, and everyone was whispering and shooting furtive glances my way. Before I could figure out what was going on, our HR director approached me, his face grave. Clara, Allison, can you both come with me, please? As we followed him to the conference room, Allison caught my eye. She looked as confused and worried as I felt. Whatever was happening, we were in it together. And despite everything, that thought gave me a strange comfort. Little did I know, we were about to face a challenge that would change everything. The conference room felt like a pressure cooker, all eyes on Allison and me as we took our seats. Our HR director, Mr. Jenkins, stood at the head of the table, his face a mask of corporate disappointment. Ladies, he began, his voice dripping with faux concern. I'm afraid we have a serious situation on our hands. My mind raced. Had someone seen us at the team-building exercise? Was this about our late nights at the office? Shit. Had I been that obvious about my feelings? It's come to our attention, Jenkins continued, that confidential documents regarding our upcoming merger have been leaked to our competitors. Wait, what? This wasn't at all what I was expecting. And you think we did it? Allison's voice was sharp, indignant. God, she was beautiful when she was angry. Jenkins raised his hands in a placating gesture. We're not accusing anyone, yet, but you two have had the most access to these documents. We need to conduct a thorough investigation. My head was spinning. This is insane, I sputtered. We've been busting our asses on this project. Why would we sabotage it? Perhaps for a better offer elsewhere, Jenkins suggested, his eyebrow raised. Or personal reasons. The insinuation hung heavy in the air. I felt sick. That's bullshit and you know it, Allison snapped, standing up. Clara and I are dedicated to this company. We demand to see the evidence. Jenkins sighed. For now, you're both suspended pending investigation. Please clear out your desks and turn in your badges. The next hour was a blur of shocked colleagues and whispered rumors as we packed up our things. As we stood in the elevator, our boxes of personal items in hand, I felt like I was in some bizarre dream. This can't be happening, I muttered. Allison turned to me, her eyes fierce. We're not going down without a fight, Clara. We're going to clear our names. Her determination was contagious. I nodded, feeling a surge of resolve. You're right, we'll figure this out. We ended up at a nearby coffee shop, our boxes stashed in Allison's car. As we nursed our lattes, we began to piece together what might have happened. Okay, let's think, Allison said, her brow furrowed in concentration. Who else had access to those files? I racked my brain. Well, there's Jenkins, obviously, and the CEO. Oh, and that new IT guy. What's his name? Dave? Allison's eyes lit up. Dave. Didn't he mention he used to work for our biggest competitor? We spent the next few hours plotting, planning, and yes, occasionally getting distracted by the way Allison's hair fell across her face, or how her hand would briefly touch mine as we exchanged ideas. As the sun began to set, we realized we'd have to continue our investigation after hours. The thought of sneaking into the office at night, just the two of us, sent a thrill through me that had nothing to do with clearing our names. "We should probably get some rest," Allison said, standing up. "Meet back here at midnight?" I nodded, trying to ignore the butterflies in my stomach. "It's a date." Allison paused, her eyes meeting mine. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something. Hope? Desire? But then she smiled and the moment passed. "See you tonight, partner," she said, squeezing my shoulder before leaving. I spent the next few hours in a state of nervous anticipation. Part of me was terrified of getting caught, of losing my job permanently. But another part, a part I was only just beginning to acknowledge, was thrilled at the prospect of a night alone with Allison. At midnight, I met Allison outside the coffee shop. She was dressed in all black, her hair tied back in a ponytail. She looked like a cat burglar, and I had to stifle a laugh. "What?" she asked, grinning. "Nothing," I said, shaking my head. "You just look. Never mind, let's do this." We made our way to the office building, our hearts pounding. Allison had managed to swipe a keycard from a janitor friend, and we held our breath as she swiped it at the door. The light turned green. We were in. The office was eerie at night, all shadows and silence. We made our way to the IT department, our footsteps echoing in the empty halls. "Here," Allison whispered, pointing to Dave's desk. We began searching, rifling through drawers and files. I was hyper-aware of Allison's presence, the warmth of her body as we worked side by side. Suddenly, we heard footsteps. Panicking, we ducked under the desk, pressed close together in the tight space. I could feel Allison's breath on my neck, her body flush against mine. My heart was racing, and not just from fear of being caught. "Clara," Allison whispered, her lips brushing my ear. I turned to face her, our noses almost touching. In the dim light, I could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, the curve of her lips. For a moment, the world fell away. There was no investigation, no scandal, no fear. There was only Allison, and the overwhelming urge to kiss her. I leaned in, my eyes fluttering closed. And then the lights flicked on. "Well, well," a familiar voice drawled. "What do we have here?" We scrambled out from under the desk to find Jenkins standing there, a smug smile on his face. "Caught red-handed," he said, shaking his head. "I'm disappointed in you both." But as he reached for his phone, presumably to call security, Allison's hand shot out, grabbing a flash drive from Dave's desk. "I don't think so," she said, her voice steady. "Not until we see what's on this." Jenkins's face paled. In that moment, I knew we had him. As we stood there, the flash drive clutched in Allison's hand like a lifeline, I realized that whatever happened next, my life would never be the same. And strangely, I was okay with that. Because whatever challenges we faced, whatever truths were revealed, I knew one thing for certain. I was falling head over heels for Allison Chen. And that was the most exhilarating, terrifying, wonderful thing of all. The next few hours were a whirlwind of revelations and emotions. We plugged the flash drive into Dave's computer, and what we found made my jaw drop. Emails, spreadsheets, and documents, all pointing to Jenkins as the leak. He'd been selling company secrets to our competitors for months, using Dave's access and our late nights as cover. "You bastard," I spat, turning to Jenkins. His smug smile had vanished, replaced by a sickly pallor. Allison, ever the level-headed one, was already on the phone with the CEO. Within an hour, security was escorting Jenkins out in handcuffs, and Allison and I were being hailed as corporate heroes. As the adrenaline of the night began to wear off, I found myself alone with Allison in the now empty office. The first rays of dawn were peeking through the windows, casting a soft glow on her face. "We did it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We actually did it." I nodded, suddenly very aware of how close we were standing. "Yeah, we make a pretty good team." Allison turned to face me, her brown eyes searching mine. "Clara, Whatever she was about to say was cut off as the CEO burst in, all smiles and congratulations. We were whisked away to an emergency board meeting, then a press conference, then a celebratory lunch. It wasn't until late that evening that Allison and I found ourselves alone again, this time in her apartment. We'd stopped by to pick up a bottle of champagne, a gift from the grateful board of directors. As Allison popped the cork, I couldn't help but admire the way her black hair cascaded over her shoulders, or how her eyes sparkled in the dim light of her kitchen. "To clearing our names," she said, handing me a glass. "And to new beginnings," I added, clinking my glass against hers. We sipped in comfortable silence for a moment, the events of the past 24 hours hanging between us. "Clara," Allison finally said, setting down her glass, "there's something I need to tell you." My heart began to race. This was it. The moment I'd been simultaneously dreading and longing for. I think I'm falling for you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm terrified because I don't know if you feel the same way, or if you've ever even thought about being with a woman. And I don't want to ruin our friendship or our working relationship, but I can't keep pretending that." I cut her off the only way I could think of, by pressing my lips to hers. For a moment she froze, and I worried I'd made a terrible mistake. But then she melted into the kiss, her hands coming up to tangle in my hair. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before, soft yet passionate, tentative yet sure. I felt like I was falling and flying at the same time. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, I rested my forehead against hers. "I'm falling for you too," I admitted. "And it scares the shit out of me, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Allison's smile was radiant. She pulled me in for another kiss, this one deeper, more urgent. I felt her hand slide under my shirt, her touch leaving trails of fire on my skin. We stumbled towards her bedroom, shedding clothes along the way. We made love slowly, savoring every touch, every kiss, every whispered endearment. I lost myself in the warmth of her body, the depth of her eyes, the sound of my name on her lips. As we lay tangled together in the afterglow, Allison's head resting on my chest, I felt a sense of peace I'd never known before. This was where I belonged. This was who I was meant to be with. "What are you thinking?" Allison murmured, tracing lazy patterns on my skin. I smiled, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I'm thinking that I'm the luckiest woman in the world." She propped herself up on an elbow, her eyes serious. "Clara, I need you to know, this isn't just a fling for me. I'm in this for the long haul if you are." My heart swelled with emotion. "I am," I said, pulling her in for a tender kiss. "I absolutely am." As we drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, I couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought us here. From strangers at an outdoor cinema to colleagues to lovers. It was a path I never could have predicted, but one I wouldn't change for anything in the world. Tomorrow we'd face the world together, the gossip, the challenges, the joy of new love. But for now, in the quiet of Allison's bedroom, with the woman I loved in my arms, everything was perfect. And as I closed my eyes, I silently thanked whatever twist of fate had brought Allison Chen into my life. Because with her, I was finally truly home. The morning after was a blur of soft kisses, tangled sheets, and whispered promises. But as the Santa Ana sun crept higher in the sky, reality began to set in. We had a world to face, and it wasn't going to be easy. "What are we going to tell people at work?" I asked, my head resting on Allison's chest. She ran her fingers through my hair, her touch soothing my nerves. "The truth," she said simply. "We're together. Anyone who has a problem with that can kiss my ass." I couldn't help but chuckle. That was my Allison, fierce and unapologetic. God, I loved her for it. As we walked into the office hand in hand, I felt like I was going to throw up. The whispers started immediately, eyes darting between us and our joined hands. I could practically hear the rumor mill grinding into overdrive. "Clara, a word?" It was Sarah from HR, her face a mask of professional concern. My stomach dropped. This was it. We were about to be fired, or worse. But as Sarah closed the door behind us, her face broke into a wide grin. "It's about damn time," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. "I've been watching you two dance around each other for months. I'm so happy for you both." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Thanks, Sarah. That means a lot." She squeezed my hand. "Just remember, HR needs to know about any office relationships, so consider this your official disclosure, okay?" I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. But not everyone was as supportive as Sarah. Over the next few days, I caught snippets of conversations, saw the sidelong glances. I always knew there was something off about her, I overheard one of the account managers say. No wonder she couldn't keep a man. It's just a phase, another coworker insisted. She'll get over it and find a nice guy eventually. Each comment was like a knife to the gut. I'd never realized how much casual homophobia existed in our supposedly progressive workplace. It made me question every interaction, every friendship I thought I had. Allison, of course, was my rock through it all. "Fuck 'em," she'd say, pulling me close. "We know what we have is real. That's all that matters." And she was right. Despite the challenges, despite the whispers and the stares, I'd never been happier. Waking up next to Allison every morning, sharing coffee and kisses before work, stealing moments together throughout the day. It was everything I never knew I wanted. But the real test came when I decided to come out to my parents. They were conservative, old-school types who still asked me when I was going to settle down with a nice man every time we spoke. "Are you sure about this?" Allison asked as we sat in my car outside my parents' house. "We don't have to do this if you're not ready." I took a deep breath, squeezing her hand. "I'm sure. You're a part of my life now, an important part. They need to know." The next hour was tense, to say the least. My mother cried, my father yelled. They threw around words like confused and phase, and what will the neighbors think? But through it all, Allison stood by my side, her hand a steady presence in mine. And when my father finally ran out of steam, slumping into his armchair with a defeated look, I found my voice. "I love her," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "This isn't confusion or a phase. Allison is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And if you can't accept that then I guess we don't have much left to talk about." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, to my utter shock, my mother stood up and wrapped me in a hug. "Oh, Clara," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "I'm so sorry, I want you to be happy. Are you happy?" I looked at Allison, saw the love shining in her eyes, and nodded. "Happier than I've ever been, Mom." It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward silences and uncomfortable questions, but it was a start. And as we drove home that night, Allison's hand in mine, I felt like I could conquer anything. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of adjustments and revelations. We navigated office politics, family dynamics, and our own evolving relationship. There were fights, passionate arguments about everything from whose turn it was to do the dishes to whether we were moving too fast. But there was also love, so much love. Late-night conversations that lasted until dawn. Lazy Sunday mornings spent exploring each other's bodies. Inside jokes and shared glances across crowded rooms. And through it all, I found myself growing, becoming more confident, more sure of who I was and what I wanted. Allison brought out a side of me I never knew existed, a braver, bolder Clara who wasn't afraid to stand up for herself and her love. One night, as we lay tangled together on the couch, some terrible rom-com playing in the background, Allison turned to me with a serious look in her eyes. "Move in with me," she said, her voice soft but sure. I blinked, surprised. "What?" "Move in with me," she repeated. "I know it's fast, but I love waking up next to you. I love coming home to you. I want that every day." My heart felt like it might burst. "Yes," I whispered, pulling her in for a kiss. 1,000 times yes. As we celebrated our decision with champagne and more than a few heated kisses, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we'd come. From strangers at an outdoor cinema to this, a love so deep and true it took my breath away. There would be more challenges ahead, I knew, more prejudices to face, more obstacles to overcome. But with Allison by my side, I was ready for anything. Because this love, this life we were building together was worth fighting for. And I'd never stop fighting for it. Moving in together was like diving headfirst into a pool of pure, unadulterated Allison. Her scent on my pillow, her clothes mixed with mine in the laundry, her favorite mug next to mine in the kitchen cabinet. It was intoxicating, overwhelming, and absolutely perfect. But it also meant facing a whole new set of challenges. Suddenly, we weren't just navigating our relationship at work and in public. We were dealing with the nitty-gritty of domestic life. Who does the dishes? How do we split the bills? And dear God, how does one woman accumulate so many shoes? "Babe, have you seen my blue tie?" I called out one morning, rummaging through our shared closet. Allison appeared in the doorway, toothbrush in hand, looking unfairly sexy in just a oversized t-shirt. "The one you wore to the Johnson meeting last week?" "I think it's in the dry cleaning pile." I groaned. "That's the one I needed for today's presentation." She disappeared for a moment, then returned with a different tie. "Here, wear this one. It brings out your eyes." As she looped it around my neck, her fingers brushing against my skin, I marveled at how seamlessly we'd fallen into this routine. It felt so natural, so right. But the real test came when we decided it was time to meet each other's families properly. My parents had come around somewhat since my initial coming out, but they were still adjusting, and I had yet to meet Allison's family at all. We decided to start with mine. A nice, civil dinner at a neutral restaurant. What could go wrong? Everything, apparently. "So, Allison," my father began, his voice gruff. "What exactly are your intentions with my daughter?" I nearly choked on my wine. "Dad!" But Allison just smiled, cool as ever. "My intentions, Mr. Thompson, are to love and support Clara in every way I can, to build a life with her, if she'll have me." The sincerity in her voice made my heart swell. My mother, who had been quiet until now, reached out and patted Allison's hand. "That's all any parent wants for their child," she said softly. The tension at the table eased slightly, and by dessert, my dad was even cracking jokes with Allison about her golf swing. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Allison's family, on the other hand, was a whole different ballgame. They welcomed me with open arms, literally. Her mother engulfed me in a hug the moment we walked through the door, chattering away in rapid-fire Mandarin that I couldn't hope to understand. "She says you're even more beautiful than Allison described," Allison translated, a blush creeping up her cheeks. The next few hours were a whirlwind of food, laughter, and more Mandarin than I'd ever heard in my life. Allison's siblings teased her mercilessly, sharing embarrassing childhood stories that had me in stitches. As we left, stuffed full of dumplings and warmth, Allison's mother pulled me aside. "You make our Allison very happy," she said, her accent thick but her meaning clear. "You are family now." I blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the acceptance and love. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Cultural differences cropped up in unexpected ways. Allison's family had expectations about marriage, about children, about traditions I knew nothing about. "They want us to have a traditional Chinese wedding ceremony," Allison said one night, her voice hesitant. "Alongside whatever Western ceremony we choose?" I looked up from my book, surprised. "Wedding? We're not even engaged yet." Allison's face fell slightly. "Oh, I just assumed. I mean, we're living together and—" I put down my book and pulled her close. "Hey, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, maybe we should do this properly?" The smile that lit up her face was brighter than the Santa Ana sun. "Clara Thompson, are you planning to propose to me?" I grinned, pressing a kiss to her lips. "Maybe. You'll just have to wait and see, won't you?" The next few weeks were a delicate balance of planning and pretending not to plan. I wanted it to be perfect, to show Allison just how much she meant to me. Finally, on a warm Saturday evening, I took her back to the outdoor cinema where we first met. As the credits rolled on the cheesy rom-com we'd just watched, I turned to her. "Allison Chen," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "From the moment I met you, you've turned my world upside down in the best possible way. You've challenged me, supported me, loved me in ways I never thought possible. You've made me braver, stronger, more myself than I've ever been." I pulled out the ring I'd been carrying for weeks. A simple yet elegant band with a small diamond. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" For a moment, Allison just stared at me, her eyes wide. Then, with a choked laugh, she reached into her own pocket and pulled out a ring box. "Damn it, Clara," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I was going to ask you tonight." We both burst into laughter, drawing curious looks from the few remaining moviegoers. Then simultaneously we both said, "Yes," as we slipped the rings onto each other's fingers, sharing kisses that tasted of popcorn and happy tears. I knew that this was just the beginning of our greatest adventure yet. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. We still had a wedding or two to plan, families to blend, a lifetime of challenges to face, but with Allison by my side, I was ready for anything. Because love, real love, isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better, who challenges you and supports you in equal measure. Someone who feels like home. And Allison? She was my home. Now and always. Planning a wedding, I quickly discovered, is a lot like falling in love. It's exhilarating, terrifying, and filled with moments that make you question your sanity. But like falling in love, it's also an adventure that leaves you breathless with anticipation. Allison and I decided on 2 ceremonies, a traditional Chinese tea ceremony to honor her family's wishes, followed by a Western-style celebration. It was a delicate balancing act, trying to merge our cultures and families into something that felt uniquely us. "Do you think your dad will be okay with wearing red?" Allison asked one night as we pored over color swatches. I snorted, imagining my father's ruddy face turning even redder in a traditional Chinese outfit. "He'll survive, might even bring out his eyes." As the big day approached, our apartment became a war zone of seating charts, flower arrangements, and enough tulle to suffocate a small army. But through it all, Allison remained my anchor. Every stolen kiss, every shared laugh, every quiet moment of connection reminded me why we were doing this in the first place. The morning of our wedding dawned bright and clear, the Santa Ana sun painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. As I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my white dress, a compromise between Western tradition and the red my soon-to-be mother-in-law had pushed for, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. This was right. This was meant to be. The tea ceremony was a blur of red and gold, of bowing and sipping and trying not to butcher the Mandarin phrases Allison had painstakingly taught me. But the look of pride on her face, the tears in her parents' eyes, made every stumbled word worth it. As we transitioned to the Western ceremony, I caught sight of my own parents. My mother was dabbing at her eyes while my father. Was that a smile? He caught my eye and gave me a small nod, and I felt the last bit of tension leave my body. Standing at the altar, facing Allison, I was struck anew by her beauty. Her black hair was styled in an intricate updo, a few tendrils framing her face. Her brown eyes sparkled with unshed tears, and her smile. God, that smile could light up the darkest night. "I, Clara," I began, my voice surprisingly steady, "take you, Allison, to be my lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do us part." As I slipped the ring onto her finger, I added, "You are my best friend, my greatest adventure, and the love of my life. With you, I am home." Allison's vows were similarly heartfelt, punctuated by laughter and tears in equal measure. And when the officiant finally pronounced us wife and wife, the kiss we shared felt like the beginning of something magical. The reception was a whirlwind of dancing, toasting, and more food than I thought possible. Our first dance, to the same song that had been playing at the outdoor cinema when we first met, felt like floating on air. As the night wore on, I found myself taking a moment to step back and observe. My father was attempting to learn a traditional Chinese dance from Allison's uncle, while my mother chatted animatedly with Allison's grandmother. Language barrier be damned. Our colleagues from work were mingling with old college friends, and everywhere I looked, I saw joy. Allison found me in my quiet corner, slipping an arm around my waist. "Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. Chen Thompson." I leaned into her, savoring her warmth. "Just thinking about how lucky we are, how far we've come." She pressed a kiss to my temple. "And how far we have yet to go. You ready for this adventure, babe?" I turned to face her, cupping her cheek in my hand. "With you? Always." As we rejoined the party, dancing and laughing with our loved ones, I couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought us here. From that chance encounter at the outdoor cinema to corporate intrigue to this, a love so deep and true it took my breath away. Our story wasn't over. There would be more challenges ahead, more adventures to face. The idea of starting a family, of navigating parenthood together, loomed on the horizon, exciting and terrifying in equal measure. Our careers would continue to evolve, presenting new opportunities and obstacles. But as I looked at Allison, radiant in her wedding gown and flushed with happiness, I knew that whatever life threw our way, we'd face it together. Because love, real love, isn't about finding a fairy tale ending. It's about choosing each other every day. It's about building a life together, one moment at a time. And as Allison pulled me close for another kiss, the cheers of our friends and family fading into the background, I knew that this love, this life, this woman, was all I'd ever need. Our story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. And I couldn't wait to see where it would take us next. As the reception wound down and we prepared to leave for our honeymoon, Allison leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear. "Ready for our next adventure, Mrs. Chen Thompson?" I squeezed her hand, my heart full to bursting. "Lead the way, Mrs. Chen Thompson." And hand in hand, we stepped out into the night, ready to face whatever the future might hold. Together,